Life is about balance. When we fall, we get up and move forward. By design, we learn from our mistakes and adapt to new circumstances. It's what makes us unique, what makes us human. We started driving westward towards Minnesota. Our intention, to hear stories of human resiliency and mental health from diverse Americans across the country. How do people deal with difficult events that change their lives? What does overcoming hardship look like, and what can we learn from it? The Kellers live on over 100 acres of farmland along the St. Croix River in Minnesota. Generations ago, this land was a migration path for buffalo. You can still find old arrowheads in the soil among the countless rows of corn. Steve and Karen Keller inherited the farmland and plan to pass it down to their two sons, Chris and Kyle. Kyle, the youngest son, reached out to us in an email. He is a clinical social worker and therapist interested in creating conversations around mental health. He told us about a net of musicians, teachers, elders, friends, and family that want to tell their stories. Before we are introduced to this community, the Kellers invited us over for a fish fry to meet the family and their friends, Al and Lisa Baker of the Anishinaabe tribe. Steve went fishing early in the morning to catch the rainbow trout.
Garage, basically, her mom and dad's garage.
The hunting shack was,
The old house was
yeah.
right next to it. So that's,
And she, by right, she should have inherited the place, but with her handicap, she didn't really have any interest in it, so. And I always had a attachment to this place, you know. Spent a lot of time here when I was a kid with my grandma, so I begged her to hang on to it, and when she passed away, she left it in her will that we got the property.
That is Chris, Kyle's older brother, and his daughter Shanti. Chris is a freestyle rapper, musician, teacher, and Shanti may be the purest being on this earth. Next to Chris is his partner Sherry. At the head of the table sits Karen Keller.
The best times we ever had in our life were around the dinner table.
oh yeah.
That's the honest to God truth for my family. And that's what we need to return to, you know, because, you know, to remember those good times. A lot of people, so much laughter.
Like so many American family dinners, we started talking about the future of our society. There's definitely hope, though.
I believe there's hope, yeah. And, you know, that's the thing, there's always hope, and the world out there does have to change because that system's unsustainable, and it's gonna wreck itself. You know, we just have to figure out how to come through with our lives and some seeds and some property that we can, you know, family, those things that are really near and dear to us, so.
This is a good sign.
Yeah, it is.
I'm gonna do the LCO.
Look how high that one is.
After the meal, we walked outside. Al and Lisa noticed two bald eagles circling the farm overhead. They said a prayer and started singing. Al and Lisa are worried that the modern world is losing touch with native ways. They speak across the country in an effort to engage the next generation of young people with indigenous views on mental health and well-being.
What we call walking red road is walking in balance with the dark and the light, the bipolar mentality that exists in reality today. Even our brains are divided into two sides. The right hemisphere, that's where we get all of our spiritual, emotional, metaphysical, intuitive, all of that's over here. And on the left side of the brain, that's where all the calculations, analytical, judgment, all those things. If we live too much on the left side of the brain, then we don't grow spiritually. So too much science without spiritual growth leads to catastrophe, because in that scientific growth and technological growth, also power beyond your ability to understand. And that power that's in there, when you surrender all of your power to it, will eventually enslave us.
Al's right. Young people are being enslaved by tech, and it's not even our fault. It's now mainstream to scroll through Twitter while engaged in a real-life conversation. And it's beginning to affect our mental health. Teens who spend 5 or more hours a day on their phones are 71% more likely to exhibit suicide factors and symptoms like depression when compared to teens who spend an hour a day on their device. Suicide rates among America's young people is at a record high, yet more than 12 states do not require mental health education.
I wasn't talked about at all when I was in school. When you're younger, I don't know if it was mentioned or discussed at all, but no, it's definitely not part of my experience. Should be, for sure. I mean, there's like psychology courses that you could elect to take, but it wasn't integrated into the rest of the education. But now I think it's starting to be with younger kids. There's, or at least some schools, where they do more emotion regulation, distress tolerance, skills building, that sort of thing. And then intervening or helping at the family systems level is important too. To have the whole family be part of it. We tend to identify or single out kids as being problematic kids, but they're often, there's a bigger story going on with the family and the system, and then maybe the neighborhood, and those systems that extend outward from the individual. You know?
And when I think of Shanti running around and how much I've learned from just her presence, it's amazing. I mean, talk about things that are right versus wrong, people's truth that you would want to like maybe try and challenge. When you look at a kid, when you look at a child, it seems like that's the purest form of what our souls can be, and then the further we get away from that, things get quite complicated or really convoluted. Mm-hmm. So I mean, I guess my question's to Chris. What do you learn from Shanti on a daily basis, being her dad?
What do I learn from her?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Just the raw honesty, that there's not a lot of space between what she's feeling and how she expresses it. And it's done very authentically. And her intuition and instincts are fully engaged. And there's no faking anything. Something that comes to mind.
Our intention is to gather a series of discussions around what it means to be American in the 21st century and how we can begin to change. We have a lot to learn from our elders about how to treat the earth, how to stay healthy, and how to focus on what is important. As we continue to unravel these stories, it is clear that each person has both something to offer and something to learn.
Beautiful. Oh, it's just practice.